She ran for her life, straight into the territory of the one wolf everyone feared. But instead of killing her, the rogue alpha stepped between her and her hunters and growled, "She stays with me." She was already bleeding when the forest began to thin. Not badly at first, just enough to slow her down, enough to tell her she would not make it much farther if she didn't stop. But stopping wasn't an option. She could hear them behind her, not close, but closer than they had been an hour ago. She pressed her hand against her side as she ran, teeth clenched against the sharp ache there. Branches snapped underfoot. Cold air burned her lungs. The moon hung low above the trees, pale and distant, giving just enough light to remind her how exposed she was becoming as the forest opened into uneven ground. They were hunting her. That was the only truth that mattered. She had not planned to run tonight. She hadn't prepared. No supplies, no allies. She had slipped away because the air inside the packlands had felt wrong, too tight, too watchful. The way people had gone quiet when she entered a room, the way no one met her eyes anymore. Then the order had been whispered. Not yet. Wait. She had not waited. Her foot caught on a root hidden beneath leaves, and the ground rushed up to meet her. She hit hard, breath knocked from her chest, pain flaring bright through her ribs. She rolled instinctively, pushing herself back up before panic could set in, but her body lagged behind her mind. Everything hurt, everything felt slow. She staggered forward again, vision blurring at the edges. The blood was warmer now, more than before. She made it only another dozen steps before her legs gave out beneath her. This time, when she fell, she didn't get up right away. The forest smelled different here, sharper, cleaner. Not packland, not claimed. Her chest rose and fell unevenly as she dragged herself toward the shadow of a rock outcrop, teeth chattering as shock crept in. She pressed her back against stone, curling in on herself, trying to make less noise, trying to disappear. Her thoughts scattered. She wondered briefly if this was what they had wanted all along. Not a public execution, not a challenge, just this. Let the forest finish the job. Footsteps echoed somewhere distant. She squeezed her eyes shut. When she opened them again, it was because the forest had gone completely, unnaturally silent. No birds, no insects, no wind through leaves, just presence. Something stepped out of the darkness ahead of her. He was large, larger than any alpha she had ever seen. Not broad in the polished way of a pack leader, but solid, scarred, built like the land itself had shaped him for violence and survival. His movements were quiet despite his size, controlled in a way that made her skin prickle. Rogue. The word surfaced in her mind with sudden clarity. Her heart lurched, not with attraction, not yet, but fear sharp enough to cut through the haze of pain. Rogues did not help. Rogues did not intervene. Rogues took what they wanted or walked away. She tried to push herself back, but her limbs refused to cooperate. He stopped several paces away, eyes fixed on her face, then her side, then the blood soaking into the leaves. His gaze was intent, assessing, without cruelty, but without gentleness either. She braced herself for his decision. Instead, he swore under his breath. In one smooth movement, he crossed the distance between them and crouched beside her. She flinched when his hand reached for her, instinct screaming, but his grip was firm, not rough, not hesitant. "Easy," he said quietly. His voice was low, steady, carrying authority without need for threat. "You're safe. Stop fighting." Safe was not a word she trusted anymore. Still, she went slack against his grip, more from exhaustion than belief. He turned her slightly, inspecting the wound with practiced efficiency. The cut along her side was deeper than she had realized. Her sleeve was torn. Blood slicked her fingers when she tried to touch it. He pressed a cloth. Where had that come from? Hard against her skin. Pain flared white-hot, stealing her breath, but he didn't ease the pressure. "Breathe," he ordered. "If you pass out, I can't help you. She breathed. His scent reached her then, sharp and clean and unmistakably alpha, but not marked by pack. No territory, no layered bonds, just him. Dangerous, untethered. Rogue alpha, her instincts whispered. He finished binding her side quickly, efficiently, then lifted her without warning. She gasped, fingers clutching his jacket as the world tilted. His hold was secure, iron strong, holding her close to his chest as if she weighed nothing at all. "Why?" she managed. It was the first word she'd spoken aloud since she started running. He didn't answer. He moved through the forest swiftly, unerringly, avoiding open ground, favoring shadow. Every so often he paused, head tilted, listening. Each time, tension rolled through his body, an awareness that set her nerves on edge. She didn't know how long they traveled. Time blurred. Pain dulled into a heavy throb. She became aware, distantly, of warmth, of a low fire crackling somewhere safe. He set her down gently this time, easing her against a tree or stone. She wasn't sure. She forced her eyes open. They were in a shallow ravine, hidden from sight, firelight dancing low and controlled. No smoke plume, no obvious signs of long-term shelter. Temporary. He knelt in front of her again, fingers deft as he checked her bandage, his jaw tight with concentration. She noticed then the scars, old ones crossing his hands, his neck, the edge of his jaw. Marks of fights survived, not avoided. "Drink," he said, offering her a flask. She hesitated only a moment before obeying. The water was cold and clean. It grounded her. "Why are you helping me?" she asked again, voice hoarse. This time his gaze flicked to her face, sharp and unreadable. "Because if I leave you," he said, "you won't survive the night." That wasn't an answer, not really, but it was honest. She swallowed and leaned back, too tired to argue. Her eyelids drooped against her will. Before she drifted off, she felt his presence shift, closer, protective, positioned between her and the open forest. She slept. She woke to pain and quiet. The fire had burned low, embers glowing faintly. Dawn light filtered weakly through the trees. Her side throbbed in time with her pulse, but the bleeding had slowed. She was wrapped in a thick jacket, his, she realized dimly, heavy with his scent. He sat several feet away, back to her, still as stone. "You're awake," he said without turning. "Yes." Her voice sounded small. She cleared her throat. "Thank you." He acknowledged it with a shallow nod. They stayed like that for a long moment, the space between them filled with things unsaid. Finally, she asked, "What happens now?" He stood and turned to face her fully. Up close, he was even more imposing. Dark hair pulled back roughly, eyes sharp, watchful. He did not smile. "Now," he said, "you leave this area, slowly, quietly, with me." "With you," she repeated. "Yes." "And after that?" His gaze held hers, intense enough to make her breath catch. "That depends on how persistent they are," he said, "and how important you are to them." She had the sudden, terrifying sense that he already knew the answer. The trail they took was nothing she recognized. They avoided paths, avoided signs of habitation. He set a careful pace that accounted for her injury, never pushing her harder than she could manage, but never allowing her to lag far from his side. When she stumbled, his hand was there immediately, steadying her without comment. When she grew pale and quiet, he stopped without being asked. She found herself watching him in the silences. The way he listened, the way he scanned their surroundings, the way his attention seemed to circle her even when he wasn't looking directly at her. Possessive, her instincts whispered again, uncertain but persistent. By late afternoon, the forest thickened again. He guided her into another concealed hollow and made camp with quick, efficient movements. "They won't find us tonight," he said, "but they'll keep looking." Her fingers curled in the edge of his jacket. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why won't they let it go?" His expression darkened. "Because someone marked you as worth retrieving." A chill slid through her. She opened her mouth to ask more, but stopped when he straightened abruptly, eyes locking on the trees beyond their shelter. Someone was nearby. He moved in front of her without hesitation, blocking her from sight, body tense and ready. His hand brushed her shoulder, brief, grounding, unmistakably protective. "Stay silent," he murmured. "No matter what you hear." Her heart hammered as shadows shifted between the trees. Whoever hunted her had not given up, and the rogue alpha standing between her and the world had made it clear. She was not facing them alone. They moved before the sun fully cleared the trees. He woke her without touching her, voice low and close enough to pull her out of sleep before panic could take hold. By the time she was fully aware, he was already dismantling the small camp, scattering ash, erasing signs of fire. Nothing lingered. Nothing invited pursuit. "Can you walk?" he asked. She pushed herself upright, grimacing as pain flared through her side. The bandage held, tight, effective. She tested her weight carefully. "Yes," she said, slowly. "Yes," she said, slowly. "That's fine," he replied. "We don't rush when it matters." He didn't say because you're injured. He didn't soften it. He simply adjusted his pace without comment, setting a rhythm that allowed her to keep up without overexertion. They traveled east, then doubled back north, then cut sharply west. She lost all sense of direction within minutes. The forest thickened again, uneven terrain forcing her to watch her footing. More than once, she felt herself sway, and each time, his hand appeared at her elbow, steady and unyielding, before disappearing again as soon as she recovered. He never asked if she was all right. He already knew. As the hours passed, she became acutely aware of how closely he monitored the world around them. He stopped abruptly at odd moments, head tilted, eyes distant as if listening beyond what she could hear. When they moved again, he positioned himself ahead of her, always slightly to the side that left her shielded from the open terrain. Protective, not showy, not explained. She wondered how many battles he'd fought without a pack. By midday, they stopped near a narrow stream. He crouched, checked the water, then nodded once. "Rest," he said. She sank onto a fallen log, breath escaping her in a shaky exhale. The ache in her side had deepened into something constant, exhausting. She pressed her palm lightly against the bandage, eyes fluttering closed for a moment too long. When she opened them, he was kneeling in front of her again. He took her hand without asking. She stiffened instinctively, then forced herself to relax as he turned it palm up, checking for tremor, for cold. His touch was firm, clinical, but his thumb lingered briefly at her wrist, right over her pulse. "You're pushing yourself," he said. "I can manage," she replied quietly. "I know." His gaze lifted to hers. That wasn't an accusation. He released her hand and handed her dried food, watching until she ate. Only then did he turn away, scanning the forest as he ate his own portion quickly, efficiently. "Why were you alone?" he asked suddenly. The question startled her. She hadn't realized he would ask anything at all. "I wasn't supposed to be," she answered after a moment. He waited. She could feel it, his attention steady, unbroken. "I left before they could stop me," she continued. Before it turned into something worse." "What kind of worse?" She swallowed. The stream murmured softly beside them. "They were deciding what to do with me." That earned her his full attention. He turned to face her, expression hardening. "Deciding," he repeated. "Yes. For how long?" "I don't know. Long enough to whisper. Long enough to stop using my name." His jaw tightened. And no one intervened. "No," she said. "No one who could." He looked away before she could read his reaction fully, gaze cutting across the tree line as though calculating distance, time, consequences. "They'll keep hunting," he said. "Not because you ran, because you know they were undecided." She frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It does," he replied. "Undecided situations attract final answers." The weight of his words settled uncomfortably. They moved again soon after. By afternoon, her steps grew heavier, her breath rasped. She did not ask for help, but the moment her stride faltered, he slowed. When she nearly stumbled crossing rocky ground, he lifted her without warning, settling her weight against his chest. She sucked in a breath. You can, he agreed. Later. He carried her for nearly an hour. She rested her head against his shoulder without thinking, the rhythm of his stride lulling her into something fragile and quiet. His scent surrounded her, stronger now, unmistakable, alpha, rogue, steady. Her body responded before her mind allowed it. A warmth settled low in her chest, confusing and unwelcome and entirely real. When he finally set her down, he didn't step away immediately. For a moment they stood too close, her fingers curled into the front of his jacket, his hands firm at her waist, as if ensuring she wouldn't collapse the instant he released her. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, an awareness sharp enough to steal her breath. He released her first. "Don't make a habit of fading on me," he said quietly. She nodded. "I won't." They made camp again as dusk fell, deeper in rough terrain. He chose the site with care, natural stone, low ground, wind cover. No fire this time, no warmth beyond shared proximity. She wrapped herself in his jacket again without comment. Sleep came fitfully. She woke to voices, not close, but not far enough to ignore. Her breath caught. She tensed, heart pounding as fear flooded back all at once. She sat up, reaching instinctively for him, and found him already there, one hand covering her mouth, the other braced on the ground beside her. "Stay," he murmured against her ear. "They're searching wide." She nodded, barely breathing. The voices drifted. Shapes moved between trees. She recognized one voice, low, sharp, familiar enough to make her chest tighten painfully. "They're wrong," the man said. "She wouldn't have survived the first night." "Unless someone helped her," another replied. Silence stretched. "She's not worth this," the first said eventually. "Let the forest finish it." Her breath shook. The rogue alpha's hand tightened slightly, not restraining, not threatening, protective, possessive. "They're moving on," he whispered a minute later. She slumped against him once the sounds faded, legs trembling. He did not move away. "Why would they hunt me like that?" she asked, voice barely sound. "Why not just let me disappear?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because disappearance creates questions," he said, "and questions lead to challenges." She shivered. He shifted, positioning himself fully between her and the forest. "You're under my protection now," he said quietly. "That makes them cautious." "And you?" she asked. A pause. "I'm already condemned," he said simply. "Adding you changes nothing for me." The implication lingered heavy between them. She looked at him in the dim light, scars catching faintly, posture unyielding despite exhaustion. "Then why risk it?" she asked. This time, he did not answer. Not because he wouldn't. Because the truth wasn't ready yet. She slept again eventually, pressed against his side, his arm a solid barrier at her back. When dawn came, it brought with it certainty. Whatever she was to the packs, whatever he had lost to protect, their fates were no longer separate. They were not as hidden as he wanted to be. He realized it shortly after dawn, when the air changed. Not the scent, not yet, but the pressure of attention. The forest felt watched in a way that had nothing to do with animals. He stopped without warning, lifting one hand to halt her mid-step. She froze instantly. He listened. Seconds stretched, taut and unbearable. Then he exhaled slowly through his nose, jaw tightening. "We move now," he said. No sound. They didn't get far. The first arrow struck a tree ahead of them, splintering bark. A second embedded itself in the ground to her left. Neither aimed to kill, to corner, to... He turned, body angling in front of her before her pulse could catch up with what was happening. His arm came back, catching her at the waist, pulling her tight against his side as his other hand swept a blade from his belt. "Do not run," he murmured, "no matter what happens." Her chest heaved, but she nodded. They stepped into a small clearing, forced by design. He knew it the moment they crossed the line of trees. He turned slowly, eyes scanning the perimeter. 5 of them emerged from cover. Pack enforcers, not scouts, not trackers acting alone. These wore insignia stitched into their collars. Formal, authorized. Her mouth went dry. "Weapons down," one of them called. "You're surrounded." He didn't move. The enforcer's gaze slid past him, locking onto her face. Recognition sparked, sharp and immediate. "There you are," the man said. "We were beginning to think the reports were wrong." The rogue alpha's grip tightened imperceptibly. "She's not coming with you," he said calmly. A ripple of amusement passed through the group. "And who's going to stop us?" another asked. He met their gazes one by one, unblinking. "I am." The first enforcer chuckled. "That's bold for someone without land." The man's eyes dropped to the blade in his hand. "Even bolder for someone with a sentence still standing." Silence fell. Her breath caught. Sentence. "So you do recognize me," he said mildly. "We'd have to be blind not to," the enforcer replied. "A rogue alpha doesn't go unnoticed, especially not one who vanished on the night a judgment was passed." Her heart pounded painfully. Judgment. Condemnation. The words layered over everything he'd said before until the picture sharpened into something cold and frightening. "Step aside," the enforcer said, voice hardening. "She is pack property." The word sliced through her. He shifted then, just slightly, placing himself fully between her and them. No hesitation. No warning. "She left," he said. "That makes her unclaimed." A lie. They all knew it. A woman stepped forward from the group, eyes narrow. "You don't get to argue pack law," she said. "Not after what you did." "And yet," he replied, tone steady, "here I am." The lead enforcer lifted his hand. 2 others drew closer, spreading out. "State your name," he demanded, formally, before this escalates. The forest seemed to hold its breath. This was the moment anonymity failed. She felt it like a shift in the ground beneath her feet. Whatever protection hiding had offered was gone now. He inhaled once. "Lucas Blackthorne," he said clearly. The name landed heavy and unmistakable. The effect was immediate. One of the enforcers stiffened, another swore under their breath. "Blackthorne," the leader repeated. "You had no right to return." "I didn't return," Lucas said. "You came looking." The enforcer's gaze flicked to her again. "Do you know what he is?" "She doesn't need your version of my sentence," Lucas said. The leader ignored him. "Girl, state your name." She hesitated only a fraction of a second. "I am not answering you," she said quietly. A few of them laughed. Then Lucas spoke, low, dangerous. "She does not answer questions from people who hunted her through the night." The leader's smile vanished. "Then you choose execution." "No," Lucas said. "I choose defiance." The clearing erupted. One enforcer lunged. Lucas moved instantly, shoving her back just as a blade cut through the space she'd occupied. He met the attacker head-on, steel ringing sharp and loud as they clashed. She stumbled, catching herself against a tree, heart racing as chaos broke loose around her. 2 more advanced. "Stay back!" someone shouted, but she didn't know who. Lucas fought like someone who expected to bleed and didn't care if he did. Efficient, relentless. He drove one man into the dirt, disarming him with brutal precision before turning just in time to catch another strike on his blade. An arrow whistled past her ear. She dropped instinctively. Lucas roared her name. The sound of it, raw, furious, hit her harder than any blow. She stared up at him, stunned. He had said her name, not for comfort, not gently, but like a command the world should obey. It cost him. A blade slid between his ribs as he turned toward her, blood darkening his jacket almost instantly. He didn't slow. He finished the fight in seconds. 2 enforcers fled. 1 lay unconscious. 1 did not move at all. The leader backed away, eyes wide now. "This isn't over," he said hoarsely. "You've marked yourself." Lucas took 1 step forward. "They already did," he said. "Now leave." They did. Only when the forest swallowed them again did Lucas sag slightly, breath turning rough. She rushed to him without thinking, hands trembling as she pressed against the bleeding wound. "You're hurt," she said. "Later," he replied. "We move." "You can't." His hand came up, covering hers where she pressed to his side. His gaze locked onto her face, intense and unyielding. "Listen to me," he said quietly. "They will not stop now. Do you understand?" She nodded, throat tight. "You are no longer just hunted," he continued. "You are contested." The word made her stomach drop. "And I am no longer only condemned," he said. "I am accountable." "For me?" she whispered. His grip tightened. "For you," he confirmed. They moved again, harder, faster, blood marking their trail no matter how carefully they tried to erase it. By nightfall, exhaustion dragged at both of them. Lucas collapsed against a stone embankment, jaw clenched against pain as she rewrapped his wound with shaking hands. "You shouldn't have said your name," she murmured. "I was never going to let them take you nameless," he replied. She swallowed. "You used mine." A pause. "I know," he said. Silence stretched between them, heavy and irrevocable. The world had shifted. Whatever they had been before, strangers passing in the dark, was gone. Now the packs knew. The sentence stood. And the blood moon, she realized with cold certainty, was no longer a story. They did not stop until long after nightfall. Lucas pushed them hard despite his wound, choosing routes that burned muscle and lung rather than speed, forcing elevation changes and crossing water that confused scent and made pursuit costly. When they finally slowed, it was only because the terrain demanded it, steep rock rising into a narrow passage where the forest thinned into wind-swept stone. He collapsed into a crouch behind a jagged outcrop, breath ragged now, blood tacky beneath his jacket. She dropped beside him, hands already moving, fingers sure despite their tremor. "You can't keep moving like this," she said quietly. "I can," he replied. "I will." She met his gaze. "You're bleeding again." For a long moment, it looked like he might argue, but then his shoulders lowered a fraction. A concession, barely there. "5 minutes," he said. "Then we move." She worked quickly, cleaning the wound as best she could, tightening the binding. He didn't flinch. He didn't look away. When she finished, her hands lingered, pressing more firmly than necessary, as if anchoring him might keep him upright. Her pulse skittered when she realized what she was doing. She withdrew. Below them, the valley stretched wide and empty under moonlight. No pack territory markers, no signals, nothing claimed. "This is beyond them," she said softly. "Isn't it?" "Yes." Relief flickered, then vanished when he continued. "But that won't stop them." She exhaled slowly. "What happens now?" He didn't answer at once. He watched the valley, eyes tracking possibility, cost, inevitability. "Now," he said finally, "the judgment stands." Her chest tightened. "Against you. And by extension," he said, anyone under my protection. She absorbed that in silence. So they'll kill you, she said eventually. They'll try. And me? He turned then, eyes sharp. They won't touch you, he said flatly. She held his gaze. Because you won't let them. Yes. It wasn't bravado. It wasn't even confidence. It was fact. The wind picked up, tugging at his jacket. She watched the fabric strain and thought suddenly of how easily she'd wrapped herself in it, how natural it had felt, how dangerous that instinct was. She forced her attention back to the valley. They called me contested, she said quietly. His jaw tightened. Do you know what that means? She asked. Yes. Tell me. It means no pack will release you willingly, he said. It means they'll argue jurisdiction, authority, precedence. And until then, they hunt. She nodded slowly. And you? I'm already claimed by consequence, he said. They'll push to make an example. She looked down at her hands. The skin beneath her nails was rimmed with dirt and dried blood. His, mostly. You could leave, she said. Disappear. They want me. He didn't hesitate. No. The simplicity of it stole her breath. That's not, she swallowed. That's not rational. It's deliberate, he corrected. Silence stretched between them, not awkward, heavy with all the things she hadn't asked. Eventually she said, When you used my name earlier, you knew it would cost you. Yes. You still did it. He studied her face carefully. Names carry weight. And you chose to carry mine. Yes. She closed her eyes briefly, steadying herself. When she opened them, the sound reached her first. Howls. Distant. Multiple. Layered. Lucas was on his feet instantly. They've regrouped, he said. Formal pursuit now. Her stomach dropped. How many? Enough. They moved deeper into the stone corridor as the sound carried upward, echoing against rock. The howls were not frantic. They were coordinated. They're calling others, she said. Yes. And they know where we're headed. They're guessing, he replied. I'm correcting. He led them down into narrow ground where steep drop-offs made formation impossible and scent pooled uselessly. The path was treacherous. She slipped once and scraped her palms raw, catching herself. Lucas caught her before she could fall farther, grip bruising in its urgency. Focus, he said, low and sharp, not angry, afraid. I'm here, she replied. I'm not going anywhere. Something flickered in his expression, gone before she could place it. They reached a dead end just before dawn. Stone rose sheer in front of them, broken only by a narrow fissure barely wide enough for one person. Wind curled out of it, cold and clean. Through, he said. She frowned. Where does it lead? Out, he replied. Eventually. And you? I follow. She hesitated only a second before slipping through. Inside, the air narrowed. Sound vanished. The world reduced itself to stone and breath and movement. Her shoulder brushed rock. Her side burned. She pushed through anyway. When she emerged on the other side, the land beyond was stark and open. High cliffs, sparse trees, nothing to hide behind. Blood moon ground, she whispered. Yes. She turned to him sharply. That's madness. That's safety, he corrected. For now. He emerged beside her, breathing hard. Below them, torchlight flickered in the distance. The packs had reached the valley floor. They won't cross, she said. Not tonight, he agreed. Not without sanction. She sank down onto the cold ground, exhaustion finally dragging her under. So this is it, she murmured. We wait. Yes. For judgment. For sunrise, he said. Judgment comes later? She looked at him then, really looked, and saw the lines of strain at the corners of his eyes, the way his stance favored the injured side, the cost he was paying already. You could have let them take me, she said quietly. I will not repeat myself, he replied. Her throat tightened. Why me? She asked, not demanding, not accusing, just tired and needing something solid. Lucas looked away, gaze fixed on the distant fires. Because once, he said slowly, I failed to step in soon enough. The words settled like stones. That was all he said. Morning broke slow and pale, revealing the world in harsh clarity. The packs below remained where they were, lines drawn, waiting. They're sending word, she said. Yes. They'll want formal reckoning. Yes. And you'll answer. He turned to her then, expression unreadable. I will not kneel, he said, but I will stand. She nodded. Then I stand with you, she said. He studied her for a long moment, gaze heavy with calculation, and something else underneath it, something unspoken. Stay behind me, he said finally. I will, she promised, as long as you don't disappear. A corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile. They stood together as the sun climbed higher, the world holding its breath. Behind them, the narrow stone passage sealed nothing. Ahead of them, judgment waited. And somewhere beyond the horizon, though neither spoke it aloud, the blood moon was already on its way,